Hi, everyone. It is a Friday. We are talking about newer releases because this is an episode of Uncertified, Certified Forgotten's new ish release podcast. In 30 minutes, we're going to give you a film from the last 6 months, a film from the last year that we still think represents the ethos of Certified Forgotten and that you're going to be excited to hear about. And holy shit, friends, we have got a movie for you today. This shit is it's just wild, Dono. I don't even know another way to put it.
Is it even a movie? I mean, it's a movie, but to call it a feature length, we're gonna have to get into it. That part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, we are. So, like, all right, let's dive into it. Um, we're talking about Chime, which is a new release this week, I believe, a new release from a legendary Japanese horror filmmaker, somebody who helped shape the current wave or the 2000s wave of Japanese horror that basically set the stage for everything America was going to do for a long time. Kiyoshi Kurosawa. You know him from films like Pulse, kind of the master of like lonely horror. But his newest release, Chime, is a 45-minute feature length film that is only available on an NFT platform. And the shortest version of it is that it is about a chef who is teaching a cooking class, but would rather be working in a kitchen of his own. And he may sort of be falling apart a little bit. We'll get into that in a second. If you're a Kurosawa completionist, the guys in the Criterion Collection, for God's sakes, you're going to want to seek this out. That's bearing the lead a little bit. But let's talk about how you watch it, because that is the most interesting thing about the film, even before we talk about the content itself. Donato, I want you to retrace the steps of how you ended up renting this movie, because I think that is a story.
Well, so here I want to say something very clearly. Number one, I am not an NFT bro. This is not an advocacy for NFTs. I am simply watching a horror movie the only way that I am available to watch a horror movie and the
Mhm.
way it exists. Because listen, I would have watched Kilroy is Here, whatever Kevin Smith's NFT horror movie was, if I could by now. But I have never been one to sell NFTs. I've never been one to advocate for such things. I just feel like I need to say that out loud. But
Correct.
this is the situation we are now in. This is where we're living, and I would like to see the next Kiyoshi film, and I did, and I was able to do that. I'm just going to read right from the Polygon article. Shout out to Austin Goslin. This is he were entertainment. I think, yeah, entertainment editor for Polygon, who wrote this article and was basically like, "Listen, if you want to watch this movie, this is the only way to do it." And here is how. So Chime is currently rentable through a Japanese digital video trading platform called Roadstead.io.
This is Austin's words. Yep.
Yep, this I'm just reading straight from Austin's words. Digital video trading, or DVT, which is a new term to me, as Roadstead's site calls it, is sort of an evolution of NFTs. So a certain number of copies of a movie are made, and they are available to purchase, and then the purchasers can do whatever they want with them, including renting them out to other users at whatever price they decide. So instead of you buying, whoever bought Kilroy is Here, that is the example I'm using because it's the most prominent in the horror space.
Hmm.
Whoever purchased that is just holding on to it. It is theirs forever, and they're never going to let anybody see it, probably. The idea of DVT, which I am into, is the fact that there are many copies made, many people can rent them, and many people can do whatever you want. So, in the renting aspect of it, I when I rent a movie on Amazon Prime Video, it's what, $3, $4, and I get it
Yeah.
for 48 hours. So the cool thing about this DVT service is you get to pick from which of the owners you want to rent from, and they all have wildly different price points. So like one could be like $2 for a single day. One could be like insane, but $100 for like a month. There are all these different ways to find it, and I know you're sitting there going, "Why would I spend $100 for a month when I could just do that?" Like, I agree with you. I
Yeah, we
rented it.
agree.
I rented it for 3 days, and I paid the standard $3. So it's an interesting idea that I don't know if it's ever going to take off, but the Chime is the first of their DVTs on the Roadstead. So this is them trying it. This is them seeing what happens. I was able just to go in very easily, rent it, and watch it just like I would any other movie. So part of me is like, I don't get it still, because why would you do this when it's just as simple as selling it to, a distributor and going the route of going VOD? But I guess if you want to stay completely off the market, then I like, because like I don't know how, how is the filmmaker making the same amount of money off of this when it's just being sold to anyone who wants to buy it as a DVD? I don't fucking know, man.
The best way to think of it is the looks like the DVT thing that Roadstead.io set up is the notion that it is a library, or let's say a video store. It's a video store, but instead of the video store owning all of the copies, each copy, each VHS tape in the video store is owned by somebody who sets the price and the terms of those rentals. Like Donato said, they might say it's a 1-day rental for $2.99. They may say it's a 30-day rental for $100, which is weird. And again, got to preface the fact neither of us are NFT bros. It's not a thing that we're into at all. All of this, how you feel about this? This is the most that the idea of like digitally restricted, digitally licensed media has ever kind of appealed to me a little bit, is the notion that like someone made $2.99 off me, not Amazon, not somebody else, like a person who paid money to buy the movie made $2.99 off my rental. I could get my head around that in time. All of that being said, I think that the conversation we had about the weird path you have to get to rent the movie begs the question: is Chime worth A, signing up for a new NFT site, B, trusting Google Translate to migrate everything to English because the entire site is in Japanese, and then C, using whatever, sending your credit card information out into the ether and risking having American Express or Visa or whatever be like, why did you spend $2.99 in yen on this? And it's a lot of steps to get there. So Donato, the $10 million question: is Chime worth the effort?
I mean, it's interesting because, let's put it this way: it's a 45-minute quote unquote feature. I don't know if that even reaches the host level 60 minutes. That I think that's like the baseline for calling it a movie. Um, and Chime kind of comes in under that. And because it is a shorter take, I do feel like there's a little bit of an incomplete story here, where I would have loved to have seen the 90-minute version of this and where it goes after it ends. But for what it is, and for the horrors that 45 minutes can contain, there is absolutely an interesting idea here, where it's something like a Ground Zero, the sadness to me, or any kind of those, let's call it outbreak, zombified, purge like, rage like virus things. And in this specific one, you think more along the lines of Pulse, more along the lines of a Cell, or Pontypool, where it's something odd that starts. And this is about a chime. Just certain people hear a chime in their head, and they eventually go crazy, either killing themselves or killing someone else. That's what we know. That's all we really get in terms of what we can decipher, and that is the base logic. And I like that as base logic. I like that as, you can't really tell who's going to snap and when, because our main character is a chef. Sorry, he is more of a culinary arts teacher, and he wants to be a big famous chef with his own restaurant. So we see him a lot around a lot of very sharp weapons, and we see him in a kitchen teaching other kids or other students. And that level of suspense, where you don't know when the chime will take place and you don't know who has the chime, and they're all around dangerous objects, like, that is fun to me. I love that aspect of it, don't get me wrong. I just think, um would I love to see where it goes at the end of it, because I don't want to spoil it, because if y'all want to go out and check it out, I want to see what happens next so very dearly. And maybe we will, like, maybe this was a proof of concept in a way that will lead to an actual movie after it. But is it worth it for fucking $2 for $1? Yeah, for 45 minutes, I'm fine with that, sure.
I have to ask, how many Kiyoshi Kurosawa films have you seen? Because I was racking my brain. I know that Cure is considered one of his best works. It's the one that's in the Criterion Collection. I don't believe that I saw that. I want to say that I went through a Kurosawa phase a long time ago, and I know that I watched Pulse and at least one other, but I don't believe that I saw that. So I have kind of like a rough understanding of his film and the themes that he likes to play with. Are you more familiar with his kind of full body horror work?
I am giving the quick look. I don't think I am any more than you, let's say.
Okay.
I have seen Creepy. I take it back. Creepy was hit and miss with me. I will admit I wasn't a super lover of it. Um, yeah. I've seen a few more than you. I take it back, but yeah, absolutely one of what you said. Very influential, very
Hmm.
worth seeing Cure, and very worth seeing Pulse. Obviously, I got to tackle Pulse on Revenge of the Remakes. Actually, that's what I gotta handle. But yeah, I would say in the grand scheme of things, decent handle on his horror styles. Very aligned with the J horror that's out there. So I don't think there's anything like hard to decipher.
Yeah. Well, and he gets a lot of love, and deservedly so, because he kind of taps into like technological isolation, right? Like a lot of his films are about, they're set in Japan in the late 90s and the early 2000s. A lot of his films are dealing with the notions of like a society that is becoming increasingly ostracized from itself, disconnected from the communities and the peoples around them, retreating into their television screens, to their computer screens, things like that. Like that idea of isolation plays a big role in a lot of his early work. And I think it's also like one of the things that I really like about this film is the way that Chime plays with those same senses of isolation and lack of community. Because we're the main character in this, Mitsuka, is never really well defined in terms of if he is kind of like a victim, if he is a sociopath, if he's a lot of things. But we do sort of get glimpses into this incredibly banal family life, home life that he has, and where he doesn't seem overly happy to be there. His wife doesn't seem particularly happy to be there. The best thing that she has going for her is crushing cans in the backyard, which is a hilarious motif that they use a couple times in the film. And his son doesn't seem to like enjoy any of that. And so there is, as somebody who likes disillusion horror, like things where like these sacred communities and sacred pillars fall apart and how we sort of deal with that. Like I really, really like what Chime is doing with regards to this character whose social safety net, social network around him is dissolving and is surrounded by other people who can't really be bothered or be interested. The creepy factor of this film, the stuff that gets under my skin the most, isn't some A+ knife work, and there is some A+ knife work. It's all the scenes in between where you're like, how long could this continue to happen and just nobody would fucking check in or know?
It's very it goes along with like the Japanese culture of like work grind culture and losing yourself in society and losing your worth, let's say. And those themes are very relevant, obviously, anywhere. I think in America we are just as obsessed with moving forward professionally and moving forward with like selfish intentions that it's easy to
Mhm.
find yourself lost. And the ability for someone to get away with literal murder in those situations because we're all so self-centered and focused on ourselves, I think that's a brilliant commentary and a very funny look at it, where funny in a horror movie. I think dread can be hilarious at times because that's just how I confront things. But the way that works, I love, I love the scenes where the people break who hear the chime, like the people who are about
Mhm.
to commit something. You just They either smile that creepy fucking smile because they've come to terms with the fact they're going to do something horrible, or there's just an exhaustion on their face of just, I can't deal with this shit anymore, and just go and murder somebody. it's it is a it is a feeling of catharsis that is very hard to explain because obviously it's not something we do. That is not something that is normal. But you watch the person on screen just feel so good about it,
Mhm.
and that is what's scary. That is the horror. The horror is the result of what we have bred throughout society.
This entire movie has the energy of watching like cell phone footage of somebody flipping out on the subway. Right. That's what this entire movie is basically that video of somebody who just like loses their shit because life became just a little too much for them, and starts harassing other passengers and stuff. And you're looking at the people that are just sort of like, spinning away, holding onto the railing and spinning in the opposite direction and just being like, I'm not going to pay attention to this. This has been, I mean, as far as I understand, this has been Kurosawa's kind of like raison d'être since the beginning of his career. This is the stuff that he's been exploring as a horror filmmaker, and I don't know what it says about him or us that it feels just as sharp today to talk about social isolation as it did when the coolest thing we had going on was like Warcraft 3 LAN parties in the school basement.
I mean, that's the constant conversation in all of this, watching They Live today and still being like, oh, this is still fucking relevant. Like, this is
Hmm.
awesome. The commentary is still sharp as ever. And, we take one step forward and two steps back because at the end of the day, I don't want to get too fucking cynical with all this shit, but society itself makes the same mistakes over and over again. It feels like we never learn. It feels like we're never making any progress. We're just evolving in certain ways and making the own stupid mistakes over again, just with more better technology now. So it is sharper than ever. And I like the moments, especially where our protagonist teacher is, like beaten down, I guess, in a way. And
Yeah.
just kind of going back to what I said before, when the chime takes over and people are about to do their act, their final bow. There's a scene where he is trying to sell his restaurant concept to the finance people behind it, and they just, they don't want any part of it. They're like, listen, you're selfish. You want to do this restaurant your way, and you're not really hearing the partnership of it. So we're just going to go separate ways. And he is just so stuck in his moment. He doesn't even care that right behind him, some guy has got up from another table, picked a knife up, and is trying to just stab a woman. And the normality of that is once again where the terror comes from. Like the normality of just walking away while something horrific is happening, and it's happening other places, and we just kind of turn the other eye to it and go, well, it's not affecting me, so I'm sad, so I'm gonna go be sad by myself over here and not give a shit about anything else around me.
It's got a little bit of that Kiyoshi Kurosawa has been compared to John Carpenter before. It's got a little bit of that In the Mouth of Madness vibe, especially the first part where people are just randomly losing their shit all around it. And, Sam Neill's chewing on whether it's a mass is a marketing gimmick, is it a mass, psychosis event? It has that it has, again, that kind of vibe, which is, um, I wish this was twice the length. I would love to spend more time in this world.
Well, that especially, like, because where we get to at the end, we obviously get to a place that would be. This feels like the origin for a movie like The Sadness or 28 Days Later when we were dropped into it.
Hmm.
So, the movies that just give us the actual doomsday scenario, Chime feels like the precursor to all of that. So,
Agreed.
where it does drop us, I would love to see, how does the Chime, as it gets worse and worse, are people doing it more often? Those kind of questions. I would love to see where that goes. Yeah.
I want to give a little praise to the way that the movie is shot too, because I feel like we've had this conversation a couple times recently in various episodes, which is the notion of I like filmmakers who are willing to let shit happen at medium length or at a bit of a distance. I want a bit of a remove from the character. We talked about this a lot when we were talking about In a Violent Nature and how that movie is unafraid to put the camera far away from its killer as bad things are happening. This movie does that a few times. Two scenes in particular sort of jumped out at me. One is a scene that involves the murder of one of the chef's students, one of Matsuka's students, which is uh, it's simple and not simple. It's one of those like stock and kill sequences that like is there's nothing special going on. It's just perfect. It's just perfectly executed, and you're like, this is extremely well done because everything had to be just so to make it work. There's that, and then there's a scene where a character buries a body and then runs across a sky bridge, a pedestrian walkway, and that as that shot unfolds, the camera moves farther and farther away, and it's just like there's so much beautiful space. It feels like emptier but richer at the same time, and it's I don't know. I like it was another one of those movies where I was watching it and I was like, this is what I want more of. Why aren't more filmmakers doing it like this?
It's also so isolating. Those shots in
Yeah.
particular, they happen. It's just two people on the murder scene, or it's just one person as they're running across that sky bridge. And as it pans out, you see how alone these people are, and like how alone we all are and feel in these moments. Because again, that is what we've bred. We've bred a society that is very to ourselves, and that is both a good thing and a bad thing, I think, because we should be very cognizant of the world around us in a way, but also sometimes we shouldn't be involved. Like we should take a step back and let some things unfold as they do without our interjection. But the way to convey that, and to the way that the film conveys that, especially in the midst of what could be a global pandemic of violent proportions.
Hmm.
It's an interesting glimpse, and there is clever camera work. I also love the way that people just try to keep pleasantries up in certain aspects, like the protagonist's student, the first kid who you start to see is off kilter and acting out of sorts. Something's wrong. He's like stabbing at loaves of bread and he's burning his onions because he's just zoning out, and he's yelling because he's like, I just need a distraction. I don't need you to teach me. I just need to be here and not hear the chime. Then it's like, okay, this is interesting here. But the teacher just kind of goes like, all right, cool. Yeah, you do your thing. Whatever. That
Which reads as, in the moment you're like, oh, he's being empathetic and polite and not calling it. It can read one of two ways, which is interesting. Like the teacher is basically like, I'm not going to make him feel bad about whatever kind of mental crisis he's going through, or it can be like, I'm a horrible person who won't get you, like won't do anything, not even have a conversation that might put you on a road to recovery.
but yeah, it's an interesting viewpoint, and again, just highlights the fact that most of us would rather just maybe not deal with things and just let them happen in front of us versus the opposite there.
And it's a nice balance too with the way that the film, we talked about the episode that we recorded, which we're going to share with you next week. We're really excited about it. We recorded an episode with a special guest on a movie, Livid, which goes more, most, all the way through to the very end. It is the most movie that I have seen in a long time, and I love it for that. And what reminds me, you said a really good thing in there, in that episode, which was basically like movies that are slow burns should be slow burns for half the film, not 95% of the film. But I also think that this movie, Chime, is an example of how you do that well. When if you dial things in, then your 4 becomes an 11, right? Like the most grotesque shot in the entire movie is a Dutch angle of the protagonist's wife when she's like a little bit cross-eyed, like a little bit blankly, just like compulsively stepping on cans in the backyard of her house. That is a shot that would not rank in the top 1,000 individual film stills that you could find in a movie like Livid. But because this movie is so dialed in tonally, when it gets to that like little bit, that little touch of grotesquerie, just that little bit of grotesquerie, it has the same thing as like, a whisper in a quiet room can feel like a shout. It's that kind of a thing where you're like, oh, this is so deeply off-putting because we have not approached that up to this point.
And it's a good example of it's a weirdly sterile and clean film for so
Mhm.
long. Everyone is in their suits, in their classwear, let's say. There's not much production design outside of alleyways and very clean homes. So when something violent does happen, like the blood pops so much, like the color red looks so vibrant in these
Yes.
scenes, and that is such a good, clever little visual storytelling technique that amplifies how horrid the thing you have just seen is. Obviously it is. A stabbing has occurred, something violent has occurred, but when it sticks out that much, when you do so much work to make everything feel so washed over, and like you could lick the floor and eat dinner off of it, all of a sudden there's just this gross pool of blood just spilling out from a body. It just hits 10 times harder, and it's just such a smart technique. I love when a film is able to do that.
Yeah, the best movies that save their blood for like a little bit pooling in a corner somewhere. It doesn't get any better than that. Like arterial splays, miss me with that shit. A pool of blood coming out of the corner of a shot that is otherwise very antiseptic. That's the good stuff right there, man. That's the good shit.
Yeah, I
I
mean, I'll
like it.
fight for the gore fest. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I'm the midnighter guy, but I can also appreciate what you just said when you get that balance, and when the balance favors, going right back to what I was saying about a slow burn. You need to have both. Like it's a horror movie, so You need to have a slow burn for half of it, and then you need to give the payoff that we deserve for the second half. That is how that works. The same thing I think for me is visual gore when it's done right. If you're not making a sloppy midnighter that is all practical effects, like if you are doing a more, this is a killer oriented film, this is a very human horror film, which is weird to say, but I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yep.
And you have balanced correctly how much it looks real, how much it looks like our everyday existence, with the blood splatter of something way more not common in our realities.
So we agreed that for the uncertified episodes, the question that we would end on is Monocle movie or Donato movie. And I think this one's probably pretty easy, but I'll let you say it because I think it's good for you to admit that I'm right sometimes.
Yeah, I think it leans more towards your style. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely gonna, yeah, I'm not gonna fight you on this one, but maybe in that term, the 45 minutes is a better time length because I don't have to wait that 80 for something. I was able to deal with everything in 45 minutes, and I got the stamina for that in a slow burn.
Are you saying
But
you don't have the attention span to watch Monocle movies?
no, I do, but I just get, well, I wouldn't say it's attention span.
Uh,
Maybe
your
just
phone's right there. Your phone's right there.
no, I can't
Just
do
like
it.
look at all the
Can't fucking
tweets,
do it.
all
No,
the
no, no,
tweets.
no.
Just open it up. Just hit pause. Open it up. Take a look.
Nope, absolutely not. I am a watcher. I am a pay attentioner, and I will absolutely do it. But for my styles, you got to have a little more oomph, a little more excitement for me. But I think this is thoughtful enough because it comes down to story. At the end of the day, it always
Yeah.
comes down to story. It always comes down to, are you compelling me in a way that is written on the page first and translated to screen? And I think that comes through here. I'll always give a Slover and every bit of praise if you are taking me on a story that just ruins me. So I'm going to say that's here. I'm going to say I get through it, and I'm going to say this is it's worth your whatever you're willing to pay for your DVT.
So there you have it. Chime is available on roadstead.io. Again, we want to shout out Austin Goslin of Polygon because he put a film that was nowhere near either of our radars, which is a very rare thing to have a movie that is not on Matt Donato's radar. Put it right at the top of the radar. I sent Donato the Polygon article immediately and was like, "This is our episode for the week." And God bless a short runtime too. We gotta love that. Donato, for those that are listening, how do they follow you online? How do they what's going on in your world? Anything you want to pump or promote?
Yeah, I'll do the quick same thing as always, at Donatobomb, DonatoBomb, my last name plus bomb, at Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram. Those are the big ones. Some TikTok, Blue Sky, they're all there. I'm covering the boys for IGN, so I'm on that beat until that show season 4 is over. I've got some horror reviews coming out as always. I've got some other reviews on Collider, so follow the socials. I'll drop them.
Follow me on Blue Sky, really just Blue Sky, Monocle the Blue Sky stuff. And then, of course, certifiedforgotten.com is your home to some really incredible independent horror journalism. Patreon.com/certifiedforgotten. You can sign up for our free newsletter. We send it out every Friday with what's going on in the world of horror for us. And if you like what you see, we would love it if you financially supported us too. Good publications dying left and right. Every day, a new beloved publication dies. And we're here. We're not going anywhere, but it would certainly be a little easier with your financial support.